Hey everyone, welcome to the Curvy Woodworking channel. To start out 2023, I'm going to be getting some tiger walnut I have in the shop, and I'm going to be making myself a mirror frame for my bedroom. So for the mirror, I'm going to be using the same material I used for the bed frame, which is walnut. The only difference is because this is a straightforward project, I like to accent that with a lot of texture in the wood. So I have some leftover curly walnut in the shop, and you saw it at the beginning of the video. There's a lot of rib patterns going throughout, running perpendicular with the grain. So there's a lot more texture than just a standard piece of wood. Now that's going to be on the face of the mirror. I still need to have a backing in there that I can physically attach the mirror to. So I'm going to have to reinforce this with a leftover piece of walnut. This is just a straightforward piece that's going to be glued onto the back of the other curly walnut I have on top. For the longer pieces, I'm going to be using a piece of steel on top of the thinner curly piece so I can distribute the pressure more evenly. Because the curly piece is so thin, if I apply individual clamps, I'm going to have pressure points and it won't properly adhere in between those clamps. So the steel is going to help to distribute that pressure. Now, although I jointed everything together beforehand, once I glued everything together, they didn't line up perfectly, and that's going to happen with any glue up. So I'm just going to take an additional pass through the jointer, and then I'm good to start to cut it to the final dimensions on the chop saw to make the physical frame. For the glue up of a frame this size, you have to improvise. Standard clamps won't work, so we do have some ratchet straps around the shop. We have to combine a couple of ratchet straps together, and once we tightened everything up, it was able to have solid glue joints between everything. I'm going to use a router, 45-degree chamfer on the top, and a simple round over bit on the bottom before I physically place the mirror inside of the frame. For finished wood products, you should be going up to 320 grit of sandpaper. So start at 80 grit, use a pencil mark to scratch the entire surface, and continue with each grit until that pencil mark disappears. Once it disappears, you can move up to the next grit until you reach that final 320. Now you're going to see where my lack of patience turns out to be a pretty costly error. I tried to move this by myself and I picked up one edge, and I've actually cracked the mirror I had right through the middle, so I could no longer use this product. While I was removing the mirror, I actually damaged part of the end of the frame as well, so I had to recut those mirrors and get a piece that was 10 inches smaller than I initially thought of. Lesson learned, I'm going to be using a different process now by using a backer in place first, fastening that around the frame with a solid glue joint all around before I actually install the mirror afterwards. So rather than putting the mirror in first and putting a finish on it, I'm going to have the finish on it now, and I'll silicone in a mirror afterwards. These backings are additional skepticism from myself after the first mirror snapped. I want to make sure that this is a completely solid and rigid piece. Right now I'm installing the French cleat system, so I have the one fastened on the back end of the mirror, and I also temporarily place the other one underneath there that will be installed on the wall. All the work you see now is just the work I completed before, just final touch-ups with the sanding before I place the Osmo oil finish. The Osmo oil finish is going to have a total of 2 coats. You're going to apply it with the brush, leave it for approximately 10 to 15 minutes to allow the wax to seep in to the wood before you wipe off the excess. The next day you repeat that same process and you have a finished product. So So once we have the laser set up at the final elevation, we're going to be taking off that temporary French cleat on the back, and we're going to be installing it against the wall. Now I'm going to be able to pick the mirror up and drop it directly on that French cleat. Thanks for watching this video on how I put together my mirror for my bedroom. Now if you want to see some more content like how I put together these guitars, be sure to subscribe and to follow our YouTube page.